1 year ago, these kids have died in Rob's Elementary in Uvalde, here in Texas. And now, since 1 year, what has been going on? Well, according to Washington from Yahoo News, President Joe Biden used the occasion to renew his call for a ban on assault armaments and high-capacity ammunition magazines, declaring too many schools, too many everyday places have become killing fields. But before all this, President Trump had an idea to arm teachers, meaning arming teachers. Yeah, we'll get to that in just a minute. A much larger anniversary remembrance drew hundreds to the lawn of an outdoor amphitheater about 2 miles from Elementary School in Uvalde, where 18-year-old gunman opened fire in a class with the AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle on May 24th. During the White House ceremony, Solomon Biden and First Lady paused at each of the four pillars holding lit candles for the names of the children and educators who pursued. This is what Biden said. It's time to act. It's time to make our voices heard, not just to Democrats or as Republicans, but as friends and neighbors and parents and fellow Americans. We have to voice our concerns. And this program is going to do so by raising common sense. Common sense needs to start telling you things. And according to Dr. Phil, common sense just doesn't make sense anymore. But let's remember those victims. Take a look.
It has been 1 year since we lost them. 365 days since 19 children and 2 teachers went to school on a Tuesday like any other and never came home. Crosses were built, murals painted, balloons released, honoring who they were, mourning who they could have become. They had dreams. Jackie Caceres wanted to be a veterinarian, Jose Flores Jr. wanted to be a police officer, and Alethea Ramirez wanted to be an artist. She was an artist. The people who knew and loved these faces cling to what they have of them. They share old photos and videos.
I love you so much, and you can send me a video too. I'll be happy.
They remember little things. Eliana Garcia's family called her Ellie for short. She loved Encanto and played basketball. Eliana Torres was an athlete too. She died just days before her last softball game of the season, so local teams honored her by playing the games she loved, wearing jerseys with her picture on them. The murals painted by various artists honor each victim, telling their stories, sharing their hearts with those who see them. Xavier Lopez's family wanted to make sure his mural included the teddy bear that he loved to have on all of his shirts. And cousins Jayla Silguero and Jace Luevanos' family made sure his mural included a dinosaur, and hers had a unicorn. They were so young. Most should have turned 11 this year. Lucia Garcia's favorite character was Spider-Man, and Rogelio Torres loved Pikachu. They were young, but they have legacies that will live on.
You as leaders have a choice of what my daughter's life will be remembered for. Will she die in vain, or will her life have saved another child?
Tess Matta's parents created a scholarship for students in Texas State University's College of Health Professions to honor her dreams. And Girl Scouts of America awarded Anne-Marie Jo Garza the Rare Bronze Cross for her bravery.
If you haven't said Happy Mother's Day to your mom, what are you doing? Go say it right now.
States away, the Detroit Youth Choir sings the song Layla Salazar would sing with her father on the way to school in the morning.
Can you show these shoes, please?
And many bought green Converse sneakers, drawing a heart on the right toe, just like Mate Rodriguez was wearing that day.
These are the same green Converse on her feet have turned out to be the only clear evidence that could identify her after the shooting.
Annabelle Rodriguez loved blue butterflies, and Miranda Mathis had a thing for purple unicorns. That McKenna Elrod named all of the animals her parents showed at the local stock show, and that Nevi Bravo created beautiful doodles of birds and hearts. They were children. And the 2 teachers who died trying to protect their students had children of their own. Eva Mireles was honored by her fitness community with a special workout and a race. And Irma Garcia was laid to rest with her husband and high school sweetheart, who passed just days later from a heart attack. But his loved one says he just couldn't take life without her. Our world lost these beautiful people 1 year ago. but the people who knew and loved them will make sure no amount of time makes us forget.
And we will never forget these people. We'll never forget them. Now, a lot of times when we hear about these things, it's like this. I mean, turn on the news. I mean, it's like news stories. You ever hear news stories and you think to yourself, I shouldn't say this because my boss may be listening in. This is kind of like one of those examples. I mean, last year we did a whole special about this, including the question, are we doing enough to make schools safer? Well, yeah, we are. We are making schools safer. We have extra security. We have police officers. And let me tell you this. I've been telling this ever since Oxford. After Oxford, TikTok issued a challenge to where you post a school threat, post a school shooting, National School Shooting Day. TikTok was involved and has removed those videos. And the FBI has posted out a lot of things. So, like I said before, you see something, you say something. That's common sense. But was there a better situation to this? What about the fact of arming teachers? One state is trying it, and many other states may be trying that. Maybe trying that issue. Donald Trump raised the issue, and he got mocked at it. But Texas is doing its own thing. We'll talk about arming teachers when we return. Stay with us. How many times have you walked into someone saying, we ought to do something about these school shootings? And the person next to you comes up with the solution to have teachers bring guns to protect the kids. One person says, that's a great idea. And the other person says, whoa, 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 hold your horses there, bud. We talked about this several years ago, and I believe we did. Let me check the archives here from my channel, because we did talk about this. We talked about this 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we talked about arming teachers, and I showed you a John Stossel report. We'll play that for you in just a minute. But what about the pros and cons to this? Before we play you this clip right here, let's look at the pros and cons to arming teachers. Now, this was all Donald Trump's idea when he was president. So let's look at the pros and cons, the good things and the bad things. This is from MoneyWiseTeacher.com. So, let's look at the pros. Arming teachers with guns could help protect our children, and it would increase the amount of security around the school campus. However, it could also put more pressure on teachers who want to just teach, and will increase their responsibility and liability for keeping the students safe. So, the pros of this is teachers have a better chance of protecting their students. Teachers may feel more confident if they carry a gun. Teachers can respond quickly to emergencies. More armed people on campus offers greater protection. Kids may feel safer knowing that their teachers are armed. Parents can feel less stressed about sending their children to school. School districts could save money by arming teachers. That's a good thing, because a lot of school districts waste their damn money. If you arm a teacher, you could save money. And that right there is raising our common sense alert. That's the idea. If you arm teachers, you're saving yourself money. So if you arm teachers, you're saving a lot of money. There appears to be evidence that arming teachers and staff at school works. An article from New York City Daily News stated there have been at least 6 school shootings since 1997. They were averted due to the presence of armed defender in Pearl, Mississippi. An assistant principal who intervened in a riot in Pennsylvania, a restaurateur who was hosting a middle school dance put an end to the incident. Most Most shooters turn the gun on themselves when confronted by the armed defender. That's the good things. Now the cons of this is teachers cannot replace security officers. Teachers just want to teach. Teachers can become targets. Background checks don't reveal anything. Teachers will end up with more responsibility and have more liability. Many schools just don't have the funds. People might get a false sense of power from guns. Anxiety and stress make it difficult to make wise decisions. In some states, teachers carrying guns may not be possible. Armed teachers or staff could be mistaken for an active shooter. Let's take a look at this clip.
Talk to any high school student and chances are they've probably got an underlying fear of school shootings.
I am scared of the idea that somebody can walk into my school with a loaded firearm and shoot people.
It's scary to just know that this is actually happening in the world and around us.
It's always impossible to rule out the possibility of a school shooting.
You just never know if you're going to be the next school.
And even though school shootings are statistically pretty rare, the reality is that they do happen. And when it does happen, it's tragic and horrible. There's no debate about that. But what there is a debate about is how to best to prevent them. And one idea that's pretty controversial is arming teachers with guns. So there's been lots of talk by politicians on how to best reduce school shootings and mass shootings in general. Common talking points have been things like stronger background checks, banning assault-style weapons, and arming teachers with guns. And it's that last one that's been gaining traction.
Some teachers in Florida can carry guns inside the classroom.
2 school districts near Dayton, Ohio have a confidential team of teachers and staff trained to fire back at an active shooter.
It's a small force of volunteer school staff allowed to carry a concealed firearm.
Just in 2019, 5 states introduced legislation that would allow teachers to carry guns on campus. But not everyone's crazy about the idea, with many wondering if it would actually make school safer. So we talked to some students to see how they feel.
I definitely would feel safe having my teacher possess a firearm. I feel that if teachers know how to effectively and safely handle a firearm, that they should be able to do so in order to secure the environment.
I would not feel safer if my teacher had a gun. I'd feel more threatened, if anything.
I would feel more safe with knowing my teacher had a gun at school in certain situations.
It'd be kind of weird to have, trying to be learning math while your teacher has a gun strapped to his or her hip, walking right next to you while you're trying to do the Pythagorean theorem.
So today we're just going to jump right into it. Should teachers be armed at schools? Alright, so first off, I don't want to feed into the media frenzy and increase students' panic and anxiety around school shootings. I mean, after all, we are called above the noise. Yes, there has been some high-profile tragic shootings at schools, but the odds of a student getting shot and killed at school are still really, really low. As David Ropeek, an expert on risk, puts it, you're more likely to die from traveling to and from school, dying from a sports-related injury at school, or catching a deadly disease at school. Just look at these numbers for a sec. In the U.S. from 2010 to 2017, just over 20,000 15 to 19-year-olds were killed in car crashes, and 72 people were killed in school shootings. And when it comes to gun violence, students are more likely to be shot outside of school than in school. But it's not hard to understand why students have this underlying fear and anxiety about school shootings. For one, kids are growing up practicing active shooter drills every year like fire drills. Then there's the wall-to-wall media coverage of school shootings every time they happen. All this can fuel and increase anxiety. But I think we can all agree that one school shooting is one too many. Which is why you see policymakers in a frenzy right now trying to figure out the best ways to prevent this stuff from happening. And the idea of arming teachers with guns really started to gain mainstream attention after President Trump tweeted his endorsement of it. The idea is to arm a select group of teachers. So just so we're clear, not every teacher is going to be armed with a gun, like Mrs. Smith over here who's never handled a gun in her life. See, the idea is that teachers would volunteer for the program and then ideally go through some type of training. And there are already schools that under some circumstances do let some staff and teachers carry guns. We wanted to hear from someone who has actually trained some teachers for this purpose. So we sat down and talked to Brian Proctor, who's trained teachers and educators in about 60 school districts in Texas.
That's enough here. This is not a minute video. I could spend the rest of this time doing this, but for common sense perspective, what I really wanted to do was to raise common sense buttons. Because let me tell you, that's the name of the game. A lot of people sit there and say, well, we can't do this, blah, 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 so-and-so, this and this. You don't have to do this. I mean, give it an experiment. Give it a try. Texas is already doing this. You may have heard, now you've heard some states, you've heard 5 states allowing teachers to carry a gun, arming teachers. Up next, we're going to take you to a school in Texas from years ago that is doing this, and he says, and one person says that he loves this, he loves that sign. We'll hear from him, hear from that person. Then still ahead, a crime that committed after they got back from Iraq. Husbands returning from the war, killing their wives. Dennis Murphy with a crime that cannot be unreasonably adjusted. Please stay with us. Well, 2 years ago, we focused in on arming teachers, a solution that President Trump made back in February 2018 after he suggested that we should be arming teachers. Now, so far, we've looked at the pros and cons to this from a common sense perspective. Now we're going to take you to a state that has that is doing that, and many people like it. Tonight, you will meet the superintendent of that school who is doing this, and you will also meet some people who likes it, and people who say that they don't like it. Here's John Stossel.
Moving in South Florida. 17 people shot to death. What can be done about school shootings? Some say kids will be safer if some teachers carry guns. President Trump said that.
We need to let people know, you come into our schools, you're going to be dead.
Trump was mocked for suggesting teachers have guns.
Arming a teacher is completely insane.
It's a terrible idea.
A terrible idea. But Trump's critics probably don't even know that many teachers have brought guns to school for years. In Texas, teachers carry in about 200 schools. This high school advertises that.
I can see that sign out on the highway. Boy, it's a great, man.
Parents we interviewed here like the policy.
It's a good idea.
I think we need it.
It makes me feel safer.
I love the Keen gun policy.
Superintendent Ricky Stevens created it, saying if there's trouble, teachers want to go defend the kids.
We know our staff and our teachers are going to go. Do we want them to go with a pencil or go with a pistol?
Everybody's against it.
This Florida student says teachers carrying guns is a terrible idea.
You're asking a teacher to fight an assault rifle with a handgun. That seems like a pretty unfair fight to me.
The teachers have handguns against somebody with a big gun. That's not much.
It's not much, but it's better than nothing. If you go there with nothing, you have no chance of stopping anything.
The police come. They see your teacher with a gun. How do you keep them from shooting her?
We train a lot with our local law enforcement. So that helps us because we want them to at least know we're there and at least recognize us. If they happen to get shot while they're stopping a tragedy, all of our guardians have said, you know, that's just the price of being a guardian.
His teacher saw how during the Florida school shooting, the security guard waited outside.
It made me mad.
It's a reason she's glad she could carry her gun at school.
You have to have a fighting chance if something should happen at our school.
We hid her identity because she and the school don't want a potential attacker to know which teachers are armed.
Are you carrying now? Of course.
Many people say armed teachers create new dangers.
Teacher accidentally fired a gun in his classroom.
At this California school, a teacher mistakenly shot at the ceiling. One student was slightly hurt by falling debris. But that's the only incident we could find where a student was injured.
Took a rifle to his...
On the other hand, armed teachers have stopped school shootings.
16-year-old Luke Woodham has been arrested.
When this student killed 2 classmates, an assistant principal with a gun held the killer at gunpoint until police arrived. We don't know how often armed teachers deter shootings. The media can't cover crimes that never happened. The media also distort what President Trump proposed.
Donald Trump said teachers should have guns. Teachers should not be required to protect and serve and to teach.
Required? No teacher's required to carry. It's voluntary. Those who want to bring their guns to school can. Here's another distortion.
I really do not support the idea of arming teachers.
Arming teachers. Arming teachers? A new federal program? That's not what the president proposed. Lots of teachers already have guns. All a school has to do is allow some to bring their guns to school. At the Keene School District, however, Superintendent Stevens did create a new government program.
The school purchases a gun, and then we give them and register them to our teacher.
That way, he says, he can make sure all teachers have training on the same type of gun. Finally, as we ponder the best way to keep students safe, we should address the scariest myth.
The epidemic shootings. Epidemic of school shootings.
Despite what the media say, there is no epidemic of school shootings. No sharp increase. School shootings kill far fewer kids than driving, suicide, drowning, even suffocating. Why now? School shootings are not in a big uptick.
Exactly right. But we prepare for them because if even one shooting happens, it's more than we would want.
You're 10 times as likely to die suffocating.
Right.
I mean, you can't protect against all these things.
No, but we do train our kids in school how to not suffocate and how not to drown.
Certainly, Stevens' armed teacher program is cheaper than what my town does. New York City spends hundreds of millions of dollars stationing police officers in and around schools. Of course, here and in most blue states, suggesting that some teachers carry weapons horrifies people.
They don't understand that a responsible, trained teacher with a firearm is better than having a teacher with nothing. Texas will definitely probably be leading the way when it comes to protecting our kids with weapons, and that New York would choose to go a radically different way.
I'm glad that we live in a country where the local people can decide what goes on in their school district and not a bunch of people in New York City.
It's good that America has 50 states. That allows experiments. Teachers in New York City may fear guns, but teachers in Texas can serve and protect.
Exactly. So what's the difference here? New York has gun laws and Texas doesn't. That's the common sense perspective. And if New York were to try an open carry law, then what would happen is money would be saved. We would save a lot of money. I mean, we hear about these shootings. I mean, like we talked about. I mean, think about this. Earlier this season, we talked about how video games can cause violence. I mean, we talked about this back in March, which was 2 months ago. I mean, just look at all this. Just look at this shelf. Look at this shelf right here. I have a bunch of games on these shelves. All of them are E through M. Like we talked about with the rating system, you need to make sure you know what your child is playing. Because violence in video games can cause aggression and violent tendencies. It doesn't cause people to go out and shoot a gun. So does violence in video games create violence in real life? The answer is no. It just creates brain activity. It's just what I've learned from Dr. Phil, but from a common sense perspective here. So the bottom line here is we don't need to require teachers to carry guns. We just need to make it optionary. But there's a lot more to it. Take a look at this. Take a look at this clip from 2A News.
Will buy for top dollar. Get paid on the spot.
Provides incentives for school employees to get certified to carry a weapon. Under the current language of the bill, a school district could arm a teacher to meet the requirements of having an armed officer at every campus.
As a parent, I want you to imagine someone bursting into your kid's school with a gun and going from classroom to classroom, slaughtering kids. At this point, the teacher, your kids, and all of their classmates are in their classroom hearing shot after shot, knowing that at any moment that gunman is going to burst into that classroom next and try to kill everyone in that classroom. Now ask yourself this question. Would you rather that teacher bravely stand in front of those kids as the gunman bursts through the door and sacrifice her life while the shooter moves on to kill the kids anyway? Or would you rather that teacher place herself between the shooter and the kids with a gun trained on the door and bravely shoot the unsuspecting gunman as he walked through the door, saving all of the kids' lives? When I was on Bill Maher and he asked me if teachers should be armed, I said, if we have teachers who are willing to sacrifice their life for their students, why not put them in the best position to fight for their students? And he responded by saying, because they're teachers.
And they're willing to die for these students, so why not put them in a position to fight for them?
Because they're teachers. I think a lot of people feel like Bill Maher, but that type of thinking to me is naive. When someone walks into your classroom with a gun intent on slaughtering children, the only option that that teacher has at that point is to fight. No amount of ideological reasoning is going to change that. No one is saying we should force teachers to be armed, but if a teacher was willing to undergo the requisite training to carry a gun on campus in order to protect their students, why would you stop them from doing that? In this country, we have turned a discussion about how to protect our children into a political dog and pony show about gun control. At least in Texas, they're doing something about it, like actually fortifying our schools. We protect everything we care about in this country with people who carry guns. Whether you like it or not, the teachers are the last line of defense to protect their kids if someone is trying to hurt them. Why would you not want them in the best position to do that? Because you're scared a kid might get their hands on the gun? That's an easy fix. Put an electric safe in the classroom where only the teacher has access to it. Or if they're carrying it on their person, they're carrying it concealed. Students wouldn't even know the teacher had a gun on them. I sell a bunch of safes on my website as is. If a teacher is willing to undergo the necessary training to carry a gun, you really think they wouldn't do everything in their power to keep that gun away from the students and keep them safe? We shouldn't be wasting our time arguing about whether or not we should let teachers get the training necessary to carry guns on campus. That should be a given. What we should be arguing about is how extensive is the training? What are the requirements for the training? Instead, we're talking about background checks and raising the minimum age and banning particular guns because they look scary, while most school shootings and mass shootings are committed with handguns. And we just had a school shooting committed by someone above the age of 21 and had a background check for every gun they had. Then you have people using Uvalde as an example against having armed guards in school because the police didn't do their job. Uvalde is the dumbest example you can use. It literally demonstrates why teachers should have the ability to be armed. If the teachers can't depend on the police to come into the school to save them, as they're using this example to show, then they have to depend on themselves, hence why they should be able to be armed. And here's the crazy thing. Even if the gun control lobby and all of their bought and paid for Democrat politicians got their wish on gun control, there are over 400 million guns in America, and enough psychopaths who know how to get guns illegally to all but guarantee that there will be more school shootings. Even if you ban the guns, you'll just end up arming the teachers and fortifying the schools anyway because there would be nothing else left to do. And it actually works. Stop politicizing our children's safety and do the shit that we know works. We may not like it. We may feel like we shouldn't have to do it. But reality doesn't care about how you feel. Fortify the damn schools and give teachers the ability to effectively fight back against a school shooter if they get past the fortification. You got kids dying, and we're talking about background checks. Stop being stupid and start being proactive about protecting our children. Guns are political. That's why I need your help getting this message to spread on YouTube by clicking the thumbs up button, leaving a comment to let me know what you think of the video, then subscribing to the channel. But most importantly, click that bell symbol for products featured in this video.
Which is what I'm going to do right now. Just for this guy, because he does have common sense. He does have common sense. I mean, background checks are a joke. Like we talked about, if we start arming teachers, that's going to save the school districts a lot of money. Y'all may be against this, but let me tell you, people use Uvalde as a dumb example. It's a mistake. Give me a break. if you want to go back to Columbine and freaking use that example, okay, but if you're going to use Uvalde as a dumb example, then you're an idiot. Because police not doing their jobs. Look, we rely on the police. We rely on the police to do their job. We rely on teachers to teach. And if we got to rely on our teachers to make sure that they're armed to protect us, that's a fact. That's a fact here. And if we were to sit, and if teachers were willing to risk our lives to save little kids, exactly. But if we make it a requirement that all teachers have to go through arming teachers, so-and-so, blah, 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 then that's the choice here. It's like this. You choose the behavior, you choose the consequences. And by the way, we also talked about this in May of last year. Almost 1 year ago. So going back to this, I mean, this guy has a good point. And I applaud him for making the right decision. But here's one person
What do you think about
from 5 years ago who says, why arming teachers is not a bad idea. This is from 60 Minutes. Just listen to this person's answer.
What do you think about this idea of arming teachers?
It's stupid.
Why?
First of all, they have Douglas ran out of paper for
Okay, she thinks it's stupid. It's a great idea. We're saving money. We're saving a lot of money. If we arm teachers in 5 states, we are saving a lot of money. We're not going to pay teachers to carry guns. They can carry their guns, go through training. They can just go buy a gun, go through training, so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. But they got to present the paperwork to say, yes, I have trained on this. And if you present that paperwork, then you're clear to go, then you're clear to carry that gun with you. But if kids are scared, then okay. Now, y'all may be debating with me saying, well, you're such a hypocrite. You're on the side of the teachers. I side with common sense. Common sense needs to start telling you to think of other ways to prevent these school shootings from happening. I mean, we have zero tolerance policies, yes, but a lot of times zero tolerance policies make zero sense. Like we talked about before our season 6 premiere, when on our back to school month, zero tolerance policies in schools make zero sense. People have been suspended. I mean, it's a school to prison pipeline with zero tolerances. They make zero sense. If you showed a little bit of tolerance, you wouldn't call it zero tolerance. You would be little tolerant. That's how it would be. Coming up next, these wives have died in front of their husbands after they got back from Iraq. The question is, are we doing enough to prevent this from happening again from the front lines to home front? Dennis Murphy with some examples. Stay with us. It's the best of times. The day of loved ones returning to their families after coming back from the military from war. 20 years ago, during the war in Afghanistan, there was a murder that happened in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to where three husbands killed three men and killed three women. It was a crime that shocked the Army and the country and raised the question, are we doing enough to ease the transition from the front lines to home front so this doesn't happen again? Tonight, we will show you some examples, and we'll raise the common sense question as it goes along. Here's Dennis Murphy.
Special Forces soldiers are the pride of the U.S. Army. Relative handfuls of them routed the Taliban in Afghanistan in a matter of weeks. They are resourceful, mobile, lethal.
We're training a soldier to accomplish the mission
In many cases, it's going to involve violence. It's going to involve killing other people.
But when 3 of those Special Forces soldiers returned from Afghanistan and murdered their wives, people wondered if the military had created a few commando misfits who couldn't distinguish between the killing fields and their own bedrooms.
I'm kind of concerned about my sister and my brother-in-law. They're not answering their door.
Sergeant Rigoberto Nieves and his wife Teresa were in their bedroom when he shot and killed her, then himself. 3 weeks later, in another bedroom, it was Sergeant Bill Wright. He confessed to smashing his wife Jennifer with a baseball bat and strangling her. He concealed her body in a shallow grave in the woods, then took their 3 boys on an overnight fishing trip. Sheriff's officers were still at that burial site when their radios crackled out more bad news.
The call comes in, we have another one?
That's correct.
Another wife apparently killed by her military husband.
Correct.
Andrea and Brandon Floyd. He was Delta Force, the most elite of the elite. The mother of the soldier's wife was told there'd been a ferocious argument in the bedroom.
And he shot her in the back of her head. And then shortly thereafter, he took his own life.
Penny Flitcraft said her commando son-in-law killed her daughter as efficiently as if she'd been the enemy.
It was the kill shot as he was trained to deliver. It has a very crude term in the military is popping the grave.
A painless death, theoretically.
I pray.
3 Special Forces soldiers, 3 wives murdered within weeks of one another. All of them based at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. There was a somber candlelight vigil there in memory of the slain women. Questions. Were they victims of superbly trained killing machines who couldn't find the off switch when they returned from combat?
We're taking people and expecting them to do things that are not morally acceptable in a civilian world and putting them right back in their households.
On Thursday, you could be killing the enemy, and Friday, you could be taking the kids to McDonald's.
That's correct. What happened in that room in those last few seconds was not Brandon, the father and husband.
Who was it?
Brandon, the soldier.
Colonel Fort Bragg in the summer of 2002. What happened here? Was it murder by Afghanistan? Was it caused by their special training to be warriors?
We don't think so, but that doesn't mean that we just, write it off as a coincidence.
Colonel Ted Davis is the garrison commander of Fort Bragg, something like being a mayor. He has 46,000 soldiers at his post, more than half of them married.
Your people are exposed to flashpoints of violence in places like Afghanistan. 18 hours later, they could be sitting with the family.
And that makes it tough.
Was the battlefield still so fresh? Were these 3 soldiers still so wired that they snapped in a domestic crisis as though they'd come under fire? It was one question of many the colonel needed answers to. He began meeting with civilian and military counselors, chaplains, and experts on domestic violence to get some understanding of what went wrong here. The Pentagon ordered the top Army psychiatrist, Dr. David Orman, to assemble an expert team and investigate the string of homicides.
We were clearly concerned about what specifically was happening here at Fort Bragg.
The investigators wondered at first if an anti-malarial drug prescribed for Afghanistan, Lariam, had anything to do with the violence. There has been some suggestion Lariam may trigger hallucinatory or suicidal episodes in some users. But the military quickly dismissed the drug as a cause. It was when they looked at the histories of the 3 doomed couples they found the underlying reasons for the spate of murders. A slow but steady erosion of 3 marriages, coming apart under the pressures of daily military life.
Marital discord was a major factor in the occurrence of these tragedies.
In the first case, Sergeant Rigoberto Nieves and his wife Teresa started fighting almost as soon as he got home. Only 48 hours after leaving the battlefield, he shot her, then himself. Then there was Bill and Jennifer Wright. He'd strangled her and buried her body in the woods. He'd been back from combat for 3 weeks.
I love you, Jennifer. I miss you very much, honey.
The sister of the wife Wright bludgeoned and strangled thinks that the marriage disintegrated under the stress of constant assignments overseas for months at a time. Afghanistan, Bosnia, Africa.
She was alone a lot, while he was doing his job. To me, he was married to the Army. He wasn't married to my sister.
The third murder, the Delta Force commando who shot his wife, then himself, the Floyds, is another story of erosion and cracks. As Brandon Floyd's military career soared, his home life was disintegrating.
The marriage had gotten to that point where they were both becoming incredibly unkind to each other.
But none of his commanders seemed to notice, because according to his mother-in-law, for the most elite of soldiers, there's special meaning to don't ask, don't tell. Going for counseling in the military, she thinks, is career suicide.
In the military culture, what happens to someone like Brandon if he goes for counseling, if it's available?
He is no longer in Special Ops or Delta Forces. That's an immediate black mark on your record and you're out.
I bet that we could walk over to Fort Bragg and find any number of printed manuals, doors saying counselor here. I'm sure all the apparatus of counseling is there, right?
It is there, absolutely. But it's an unspoken rule.
When those fact-finders from the Pentagon came to Fort Bragg to investigate the murders, they heard the same complaint over and over. A soldier cannot seek counseling and be guaranteed confidentiality. His or her officers are informed, files are opened, and before long, promising careers are finished. And the Army top psychiatrist doesn't disagree with that take on things.
In reality, there's some truth to the perception.
Dr. Orman's research indicates many soldiers do leave the military within months of seeking professional help. But he thinks it's because they ask for counseling too late. So the top psychiatrist suggests commanders be more attentive to early clues and signs of distress in their soldiers. In fact, in 2 of these murders, there were overlooked warning signs that not all was well at home. 2 of the soldiers had asked and received permission to be released from the battlefield in Afghanistan for emergency home leave.
Neves, why was he released early, do you know?
He was released and allowed to return back here to Fort Bragg because there were issues with his family.
Sergeant Wright, why did he ask for early release from Afghanistan?
For the same reason.
Those are extraordinary requests.
They are.
In the future, do you put a red flag on guys that are in that situation?
I think you do. That's something that we have already, taken into consideration.
Do you believe now that the military needs to be more mindful of the domestic part of their soldiers' lives?
I think that that's something that we've learned as a result of the tragedies that occurred here at Fort Bragg this past summer.
Now U.S. servicemen and women are coming home from another war to their country's respect, honor, and thanks. And after many a joyful reunion, will come a time for some of adjustment as the warrior gets reacquainted with domestic routine.
How long does it take a soldier in a combat situation to shed the stress of that violence?
I think it's going to depend a lot on that individual soldier in terms of what they've been exposed to.
Especially vulnerable, it seems, are couples like the Nieves, Wrights, and Floyds. Husbands and wives who had marital problems prior to deployment. Sometimes troubled couples tend to remember only the good times when a spouse is off fighting a war. But reality upon returning home can be crushing.
What advice would you have for spouses, for the children, to be aware of and mindful when the husband and dad comes home?
Number one, they ought to be very proud, as I was my father when he went to Vietnam. And I can remember it took some time for us to get back together as a family. It didn't happen overnight.
Not automatic death, right?
Exactly.
7 children were left orphaned in the wake of the 3 murders. Wilma Walker has taken on the emotional and financial responsibility for raising her 3 grandchildren, left behind by her daughter Jennifer Wright. The boys their father took fishing after burying their mother.
I don't know how old it is really hard on my father. The youngest one first prayed for Mommy to come back until I finally couldn't stand it anymore, and I told him, Mommy's not going to come back. She can't. And then he started praying for Daddy to get out of jail.
Daddy, Sergeant William Wright, called from prison, asked for his wife's family's forgiveness, and hoped they'd raise the boys up to be, in his words, strong Christian men. On the first day of the war in Iraq, as special forces stormed into that country's western desert, Sergeant Wright tied together the bed sheets in his prison cell
and hanged himself. Just last month, the Army started a new program designed to ease the transition to life back home. Instead of going straight back to their families, soldiers returning from Iraq or Afghanistan are now required to remain on duty for 4 or 5 days and be counseled on how to reconnect with their spouses and children. The program is mandatory.
Okay, common sense alert when we come back. Stay with us. Common sense alert. Why wasn't this program done right before the murders? If you would have come up with the program, those three men might still be alive. I'm not throwing the military under the bus. I mean, it was too little, too late. That's what needed to be done here. But what you got are people here who just say, I don't care. Who probably didn't care about what was going on. So what you probably got were people who just didn't know. Who just didn't know. The moral of the story is just be counseled on how to reconnect with their spouses and the children before you go back to before all of this. And the medication, well, that should have been investigated. You take the medication, they make you take medication, skip it. Next word comes, just skip the medication. It's what the Army does. Not even one Army. Okay. We'll be right back. Earlier this season, we brought you a story about E. coli in the vegetables that you eat. But we're not going to do that for you. We're going to have that for you coming up on Friday. Because there's not enough time to plan it, so we're going to have that for you coming up on Friday. But there is time for our viral break. Here's a question for you. Do y'all remember Angry Grandpa, Charles Green? Charles Green was known as the Angry Grandpa. He started back in, I think it was 2007 or 8, with a lot of views. And one of his greatest views and this, I mean, one of my favorites. I'm gonna show you 3. This one was from CC's Pizza. Take a look.
Seriously. I ain't got stuff done, man. I ordered that dish. I've been eating 2 hours. Sir. 2 hours, man. What are you doing at camera? Turn it off. Sir. Sir. Sir, my ass. I'm sorry, sir. What? Whatever it is. See this? It's in the oven. It's in the oven right now, sir. It's in the oven right now. Shows my goddamn. Have a good night, sir. Thank you. Have a good night. Yeah, man. Sir, you have to put that camera down, please, sir. Yeah.
Now, there's a story that went on with this during the TCC. That video had a lot of views. And during that time, they shut down corporate CCs early. Phone calls started coming in. They'd asked him to move the video. He removed the video. They're talking illegal charges. They were talking throwing down in prison for life. But there was a two-parter. The second part here, he slipped and fell. He fell with the no slip signs, because they didn't put up the no slip signs. He slipped and fell. And then after that video was deleted, not the second part, the first part though, lots of other YouTubers started copying and pasting the video. Now there's a story to this. I'm not going to play the story here because we are a 50-minute show. But here's one of my favorite videos from him. It was when the washing machine, the repo. Yeah, he got mad because he got mad because of the washing machine. Take a look.
What? I'm here to get your washing machine. Dad! What? Someone's here to get the washing machine.
What? What?
Washing machine.
Yeah, can I have it?
He's at the door.
Tina, come here, quick. Come here, back him off, come here. What the fuck is this shit?
He's coming.
What?
The fuck's that truck doing here? Yeah, can I help you? Yeah, I'm here to pick up your washing machine.
What washing machine?
The one you guys are getting repairs on.
Whoa, this shit broke down. That goddamn 2-3 months ago. I told you all about it. You should have come and got it there. I done threw it in the fucking dump.
It's not my problem.
It's in the fucking dump, I tell you.
I'm picking that damn washing machine.
I don't care. You ain't pick up a goddamn thing out of this motherfucking yard. Fuck you. Get on that your goddamn truck. Get your goddamn truck. You get the fuck out of my yard.
Splash me, Dad, calm down.
Man, fuck you. That water shit I threw in the dump. Go back, take your goddamn boss. They call me and they tell me, don't worry about it.
Yeah, T on the camera.
I don't give a shit.
I want that washing machine.
Get in your goddamn truck.
No.
That's my goddamn problem. I want you fucking off.
Don't worry about it, Dad.
What?
He's gotta get it.
I'll get him. You better get in that goddamn truck, you old motherfucker.
I can't until I get that washing machine.
You ain't getting it. You know, hey, I am. You ain't getting it. That's yours. Pick it up, put it in your truck, get out of here.
Okay.
I ain't telling you, get out of here.
Where's that washing machine?
Get out of here. This is my yard. Get it. You all got
Dad. Dad, he's not taking it serious. You gotta just go.
My goddamn motherfucking yard. Get out of my yard.
Dad, please.
Goddamn yard.
Dad, he's gonna call the police. You just hit him with a bicycle.
I don't care. You ain't got proof of that shit. Get out of here.
Am I taking this stuff with me, too?
Get your goddamn vehicle. There ain't no goddamn wash machine. I ain't got no damn wash machine.
Dad.
No, it's in the dump.
The wash machine's in the laundry room.
It is the...
Are you gonna help me carry it? I'll help.
Oh, hell no. Hold on.
You gotta give it to him. He's got paperwork.
I took it to the dump. It's in the dump. Read my goddamn. I don't give my no goddamn papers. You don't give me no goddamn papers. You watch motherfucking ass that shit. Okay. But the only thing you can't do is, I'm through. Goddamn. Get out of there. Get in your damn truck door. Get in your motherfucking truck.
Let's get that washing machine.
Michael, do you...
Dad, we gotta get it.
You're not getting that washing machine. Ain't in there no more. I went to the dump. That's where I brought the goddamn Salvation Army.
Trying to bring the police.
Fine, get your goddamn phone. Put your fuck out here. You ain't getting it. You understand?
Dad, he's gonna bring the police.
You can get in there.
Call the police.
I don't care who you call. Hey, I'll tell you. Come get it, motherfucker. Come get it. I'm serious. You get it.
Can you send some police cars, please? Because there's a washing machine in
Go to hell away.
Okay, thank you.
Private property. Private.
It'll be here in a minute. On my way.
ain't gonna be good. Get out of here, Michael.
Alright. One more, because this is the aftermath here.
What are you doing? I'm watching my goddamn things to you, fat son of a bitch.
He had to.
All you had to do is tell the goddamn motherfucker watching these to the goddamn dump. Now I got no goddamn. I gotta wash my goddamn drawers.
Oh my God!
It's a goddamn pool. This ain't what the fuck.
He was gonna get the cops.
I don't give a fuck about the cops. I gotta lie to them motherfuckers. It's your goddamn fault. You had to help me lift it out of the goddamn house, man. The fuck is your problem? Goddamn, having to use the pool. What the fuck you looking at?
Something that I have to point out.
What did you need to get the fuck away from me? Goddamn mother.
What? Oh my God! It stays in the drawer.
Well, I can't get them out.
You mean what you and
The aftermath was like very funny. Well, I'm not gonna have time to show you the whole thing. Coming up on Throwback Thursday, a look at child neglect cases caught on camera. That's right. I told you before. I told you this once. We were gonna do it Throwback Thursday. We're gonna do it. Then also, then again, come up on Game Break Friday. A look at E. coli. This time not just in the meat and vegetables. It can also be found in the drinks that you drink, from cranberry juice to apple juice. What you need to know. That's it for Give Me a Break Wednesday going to Thursday. We will see you on the GMB YouTube channel for Throwback Thursday. For everyone here at YouTube, good night.